It's about that time. It's time to talk about the things that High School DxD does bad. My last video was about why High School DxD is a masterpiece, so definitely check that out. But today we're doing the opposite. I'm a big fan of High School DxD, but I feel like part of being a fan is being able to criticize the thing you're a fan of. You don't want to just follow something blindly. That would just make you ignorant. The whole point of this video is just pointing out the flaws of High School DxD and also explaining why other people don't like it. Because obviously I like the anime, but I 100% see why other people don't like it. And I'll start off with the reasons why people don't like High School DxD. And the best place to start is with the biggest turnoff for High School DxD, and that's the fan service. The fan service is kind of a double-edged sword. It brings in a lot of people, but it also pushes a lot of people away. And like I said in my last video, it has almost an unnecessary amount of fan service, and that really is a turnoff for a lot of people. I mean, I've heard people say that they don't want to watch High School DxD because of the fan service. It's just too much for them, and I can understand that, really. There are scenes in the anime that just have fan service for no reason. For example, the scene where Asuya is dying in season 1, what's the point of them showing her nipples? I don't get it. Like, this is supposed to be an emotional scene where a character is dying, but instead we get to see her nipples. It's just really weird to put that in a scene that's supposed to be emotional. And later on in that same season, Rias is giving a heartfelt speech about her dreams and aspirations. Then it cuts down to her see-through top. I mean, these are just the wrong moments to put fan service. If you want us to take this seriously, don't just be putting fan service in every scene, because it does make these scenes less serious. I mean, obviously for an anime like High School DxD, you can't just get rid of the fan service. It's a big part of the plot and Issei's character, but they shouldn't just throw it out there randomly just because. And this is the other reason I found why people don't want to watch High School DxD or why they don't like it. And that's Issei himself. Issei's character is a turnoff for a lot of people. I know in my last video I said that he was relatable, but you kind of have to look deep to find that. On the surface, Issei's just a weirdo pervert, and that's like the driving point of his character, his perversion. And that's a huge turnoff for a lot of people. It's a turn on for some people, but I think it's a turn off for more people. People don't want to watch an anime about a weird guy who peeps in on girls' locker rooms. Like, I've talked to actual people that don't want to watch High School DxD because of Issei's perversion. But again, some people do find his perversion relatable. Some people find it funny. But looking at it from the perspective of an outsider, I can 100% see why people wouldn't want to watch it or why they don't like it. But that's not the only reason why they don't like Issei. Issei has the most basic character design out of all the characters. One of the things DxD does really well is character designs, for everyone except for Issei. I think he's supposed to be one of those stand-in characters, like the audience is supposed to be able to put themselves in his shoes, and the easiest way to do that is to make him as boring looking as possible. And I mean, I get Issei is a high schooler, but it's still just disappointing when you have a world with all these cool looking characters and then you have Issei who looks like Tatsumi from Akame ga Kill. My sister actually gets those two confused. So Issei really isn't doing the anime any favors when it comes to attracting viewers in, and I think that's the reason why Rias is the poster girl. But that short little section was me looking at it from a different perspective. This next part is going to be the things that I think they could have done better. So the overall plot of High School DxD is decent. It's not like super complex or anything. It's pretty basic and it's filled with a lot of cliches. High School DxD isn't an anime that's meant to be taken super serious, so that's why I don't really care about the plot being not super complex like some other people do. That's also why I don't want to go into that. But yeah, the overall plot, though it may be a little cliche, is still good, but there are still moments that I don't like or that I don't think makes a lot of sense. So let's start with the small things first. I'm gonna just talk about small little moments that happen that I don't really get. So the first thing is Rias and Rakuno being at that Rainier fight. I really don't get why they were there, and it kind of ruins some of the tension in the fight between Issei and Rainier, because now we know if Issei loses, Rias is there to save him. It just feels random to have them there, especially since all they do is kill Rainier's friends and then sit back and watch Issei beat Rainier. Like, there's actually no reason for them to be there, but that's just a small thing that just makes me a little confused. I've also heard a lot of people criticize the Loki fight. So Loki gets sent to another area by Asuka, but obviously they can't just leave him there because he's gonna come back. So they have to send other people there to fight Loki. So it's decided that they'll send the kids. Now some people have a problem with that part. I see this fight get hate because they sent the kids to fight instead of someone like Sir Zex. But that doesn't really make sense because Rias says the reason why the higher ups or stronger people can't fight Loki.
We're not gonna have any choice but to fight him head on. Won't be easy either.
Because if the Devil King class members elect to attack Loki outright, it could result in another large-scale war, which wouldn't be good for anybody. It's far too risky.
Plus, it would play into Loki's hand. He wants to bring about Ragnarok.
So yeah, Rhea says that the stronger ones can't really get up there and fight Loki. The thing that I find weird though is them not sending Cyro-Org. They sent him in after, so he couldn't have been too far away. It's just a weird decision to make when the fate of the world is on the line. And it just feels like they just put the main characters into a battle when they could have sent someone that was stronger. I mean, you could have still kept most of them, but send Cyro-Org in there too. But those are some smaller things. Let me get into one of the bigger problems I have with High School DxD's story. Those last 3 episodes of season 3 are really weird. They feel really out of place. The pacing of them is bad. They feel slow, but then fast at the same time. It's so weird. They're just so out of place. And it really brings the whole pacing of the season to a complete halt. Here, I'll try going more into the pacing thing. So season 3 is pretty fast. You're going fast. You're like getting to the next event very quickly. You got the Kroka fight, then you got the Loki fight, then you got the Diodora, then you got Shalba. That's all happens so fast. Then it all just stops right there with these last 3 episodes. And at first these episodes go so slow, but then it's like right when they find Volley, everything just starts picking up super fast, and all of a sudden it happens like too fast. And then the final fight with Rias is like super short and nothing happens really. It just feels so off. It feels so off. And the fact that they completely cut out an entire arc makes it all just look so much worse. So you cut out this rating game that people wanted to see between Rias and Sona and replace it with that, and people ended up not liking that. I used to like blindly follow High School DxD. I used to think it was a perfect show and nothing was wrong with it, but those last 3 episodes always had me feeling weird. Like I almost feel bored when I get to those episodes. Even the fight there isn't good, or there really isn't a fight. Issei doesn't even throw a punch. For good reason. Of course he's not going to hit Rias, but still, you could have done something to at least make the fight entertaining, but they just made it boring. The whole thing was just boring. I mean, even the way they get there is a little weird, and that kind of brings me to my next point of Volley. I love Volley. I love how they did Volley. I love Volley's character, but I don't like how they use Volley in his group throughout season 2 and 3. I really don't like how he's used to bail the characters out. He comes through and he beats Kokabil. Biko comes in and breaks up the fight between Volley and Issei. They come in and they take Fenrir out of the fight. Then Volley finds Asya in the dimensional gap and saves her. And then when Issei goes Juggernaut Drive, Volley comes in and stops Issei from losing control. It just became overused, and it almost felt like the author is just using him to get the main characters out of tough situations. But luckily we didn't see that in season 4. Well, I guess we saw Sun Wukong bail the characters out, but it's different. It feels different. But season 3 as a whole kind of just feels off. And a big reason is because they're trying to cover 3 volumes with 12 episodes. That's almost impossible. You can't cover 3 volumes of a light novel in just 12 episodes. You gotta make the episode count longer. But because they had to shorten it so much, they had to cut so much out of season 3. Like, they cut these small little details out. They cut out the fact that Issei got that fire technique. Then in season 4, he just pulls it out of nowhere. They completely brush over Sona's goal, so it just seems random when Saji is like super hyped for Sona's goal. They cut out an entire rating game between Rias and Sona. So when Issei and Saji come together in season 4 and talk about their little rating game they had together, it's just so weird. So because they tried doing this weird thing with season 3, that also affected season 4, where season 4 is trying to make up for the mistakes that season 3 made. And they really would have been just way better off if they made season 3 just a few episodes longer. It didn't even have to be 24, it could have been like 16 or something. But this next thing is something I did touch on in a previous video. It was one of the fighting videos, but they really need to slow down on the rage scenes. I get Issei is an emotional guy, but that's really not like a good enough excuse for me. Especially when we get a rage scene in every single season. You got the one against Rainier, you got the one with Volley, the one with Diodora, the one with Shalba, and then the one with Cyro-Org's Queen. And I forgot to mention the one with Cyro-Org's Queen when I did that video, which isn't a good thing of course. And that's kind of the problem. Because you have so many, they're starting to lose effect. These rage scenes are starting to become less and less impactful the more they happen. And obviously the Juggernaut Drive scene is special, so that also sets like a higher standard for these rage scenes. And the one with the Queen isn't really bad, but it's definitely one of the worst ones we got, which is also why I'm glad they strayed away from doing the rage scene with Cyro-Org, because it's just starting to get repetitive with Issei going berserk. I mean, of course, right now the rage scenes are still very entertaining, but I'm just worried that if they start doing that more and more, they'll just become less and less impactful. So yeah, definitely slow down on these rage scenes. Like I said in the last video, I think characters are one of the best things they do in High School DxD, and a big reason for that is their backstories. But there is a little nitpick I have about some of the backstories, and that's the Akano and Konako backstory, or more their power. I don't like how they're doing their power thing at the exact same time, the exact same way. Both of their stories are about them not wanting wanting to use their power, but then Issei comes in and encourages them to use it, and then when they use it, they become stronger. And really, if you think about it, Gasper's story is the exact same too, but them all being similar isn't really the big problem I have with it. It's more that they're doing Konoko and Akino's at the exact same time. If they would have just separated these a little bit more, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But because they do them at the same time, they start to overshadow each other. When it comes to the power aspect, Konoko's completely overshadows Akino's. I mean, we get a whole like 3 episodes dedicated to Konoko and everything, so it makes sense that Konoko would pull out her power during that next fight, because when Akino did it, it was a lot less impactful and it almost felt like it was just brushed over. It's just weird timing. But weirdly, this isn't the only problem Akino and Konoko share. The other problem I have with these two is their fighting aura. So take a character like Kiba, for example. When Kiba steps up to a fight, you know it's going to be a good fight, and you know he's going to go crazy during that fight. And that's why I like Kiba so much, because it always seems like he gives his all during his fights. But Akino and Konoko really don't have that, and that's because they lose a lot of their fights, or they just aren't impressive in a lot of their fights. So let's start with Akino. Akino is with Rias when she's fighting Donosik and his friends, but Akino's just standing there in the back throwing up shields. I mean, I really don't get it. I don't get why she's there. I don't get why she's just throwing up shields without attacking, especially when she can just kill them in one hit just like Rias. But her presence in that fight changes absolutely nothing. Rias could have done that by herself. Akino then goes on to lose to Yuba Luna, but she wasn't using her true power, so it kind of makes sense. So I'll give this one a pass. The fight with Kokobil, Akino helps take Cerberus out, but then she completely disappears for the rest of the fight. Kiba and Zenobia both go in and still do more things to Kokobil, and they also get a whole fight with Freed, so these two get like their little battle moment. I mean, Akino attacks Kokobil and then she gets laughed at. Like, this isn't a good way to do your queen. She's supposed to be like the strong one, but she gets laughed at when she attacks the main boss. Then with the fight with Loki, Akino finally uses her true power and she finally looks strong. Season 3 as a whole actually did good with making Akino look good, and they did good with Akino's character. The fight with Cyborg's queen is so bad, and again, it's her only fight in season 4. The entirety of season 4, we see Akino fight once, and she gets taken out in a single hit. But her losing like that kills all the aura that they built up in season 3. And then you have Konoko. Konoko looks really good in season 1, but that's pretty much it. So the rating with Riser, she's the first person taken out, and this kind of becomes her legacy. She always ends up being the first person taken out. This is also when it starts going downhill for Konoko. So she also kind of helps take Cerberus out, and then like Akino, she also disappears and doesn't do anything. She tries to attack Kokobil, but then she gives up after getting hit once, which is really weird, especially since she's supposed to be the tank character. And then in the second arc of season 2, Konoko gets completely overpowered by some random magicians. Again, it's just a bad look for Konoko, and unfortunately, she's always put in these type of situations where she has to be the first person taken out. Season 3, she gets slapped around by Tanin. She's the only person that gets knocked out by Tanin, by the way. Again, a terrible look for her. And then the Kuroka fight, she doesn't do anything. She looked really good during the Loki fight, which was good, but then she doesn't do anything else from that entire season. That Deodora fight with Deodora's pieces, she did nothing. But yeah, Konoko again just didn't look good that entire second half of season 3. She almost did nothing. And during the 4th season, she only appears in like one fight. And again, unfortunately, she's the first person taken out during the Reddit game with Cyborg. I don't know why they like to just go to Konoko as that first person to be taken out, but that's their favorite person to use for that situation, I guess. So although they did the character arcs good for these characters, they could have done better at balancing the character moments and battles. Because when it comes to that battle aura, characters don't have it equal. A character like Zenobia has a way better battle aura than a character like Konoko and Akino, but then Konoko and Akino have way better stories than Zenobia. So they could have done a better job at balancing all that out. I think one of the biggest problems with High School DxD though is the villains. I've seen a lot of people complain about the villains, and I get it. They don't have too many good villains. Rainier was a well done villain psychologically, but her initial appearance really isn't anything special. But she's one of the better done villains. Riser is a villain that I really liked, except he's not really a villain anymore. And I really hate to say this, but the only thing Freed has going for him is his dub. Valpor was important for Kiba's character, but that's really it. Other than that, he wasn't interesting at all. Kokobil's like one of the most comically evil villains. Dude just wants to start a war for no reason. He doesn't really have any goals or any good goals, and he just doesn't stick out as a villain. Like I said, I love Volley, but he's not even a villain anymore. He's more like a rival now, not really a villain. He helps them too much to be considered a villain. Loki is the most mediocre villain in the series. He's similar to Kokobil. All he wants to do is just destroy the world. He's not interesting. Plus the whole Loki's curse thing was really weird. I think Kuroka had a lot of potential as a villain, but then they switch her to a good guy, so she doesn't really count as a villain. Theodore is a very boring villain. He's almost too unlikable. He's like the most typical harem villain you'll ever find. He's just there so the viewers will hate him, and there for the main character to destroy. He has this weird nun fetish, and that's pretty much the reason for him doing what he does. He's just not an interesting villain either. Most of their villains don't have any interesting goals or a reason to be evil. The only ones that have a goal or that have a reason to be evil get completely wasted. The three Satans, Kadoya, Kurusuri, and Shalba, these three actually have a reason to be causing chaos. I mean, they had their title stolen and they want it back. Like, imagine you're supposed to be the next king, the next head of your household, but then all of a sudden people are just like, nah, we're not gonna do it this way. We're gonna switch it and give it to these other people. Like, I think that would make anyone mad. It's a good start, but then two of them get completely wasted. Kadoya and Kurusuri are just there to show off the opponent's powers. Kadoya is there to show off Azazel's power, and Kurusuri is there to show off Sir Dek's power. Just super disappointing villains. Soso was a villain I did enjoy, and of course Sour Org isn't a villain. So there are really only like two villains I could consider good, Rainier and Soso. The other ones I did like turned into good guys, so they're not even considered villains anymore. And I think that's another reason why I liked Freed so much. He was a villain that kept coming back, because all the other villains show up and then they just die, but Freed kept coming back. So yeah, most of their villains aren't good, but the villains' characters aren't the only reason why they aren't good. A lot of the fights in High School DxD aren't good. Rias one-shots all of Rainier's friends. The plot really doesn't need Rainier's friends to be there. The Rainier fight's a little confusing. It's not bad. It has a lot of emotional value, and that's like the main draw of the fight. But as just like a fight, it's not that good, because it's not much of a fight. It's more just emotion. And that's kind of what I want High School DxD to do more of, is having less fights that are just straight up emotion. I want to see more fights. I want to see the characters throwing hands and stuff. The fights with Riser are both decent, and then the Kokobo battle as a whole is good, but the individual fights aren't that good. Kokobo just destroys everyone until Issei gets a few hits in, and then Volley comes in to save them. But that battle as a whole is still good. Kadoya fight isn't good at all. It's just there to show off Azazel's power. The fight with Volley, of course, is good, but I do wish they would talk less in that fight. The fight with Kuroka is super underwhelming. The fight with Loki is alright. It's not bad at all, but it's just eh. The Theodora fight wasn't good at all. And then the Shalba fight is just like the Theodora fight, except I think it's a little better. I mean, of course, the fight's still good. The Juggernaut drive scene just completely carries that fight. Freed's goodbye fight is like the most disappointing thing I've ever seen. One slice and he's dead. And then again, the fight with Rias is boring. The fight of Conla is terrible. This might be the most forgettable fight, featuring the most forgettable villain, where Issei just randomly pulls out a technique that isn't explained. The ORC versus the Hero faction was also bad. What's the point of the other members even being there if we don't get to see them fight? They're just there so we can see the other people's sacred gears, which half of their sacred gears don't even look good. Only Siegfried had a sacred gear that was interesting. It just doesn't make sense to even have them in this battle if we don't even get to see them fight. The fight between Issei and Soso was good though, and it's a nice change of pace from just Issei destroying all his opponents. The Sour Org rating game was good, and then of course Akino's fight with Sour Org's queen is terrible. Probably the worst fight in the anime. Ruined Akino's battle aura that I was talking about earlier, and just makes Akino look a lot worse. Just not a good fight at all. But of course they wrapped it all up good with Issei versus Sour Org. So yeah, the fights are a mixed bag. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. A lot of them have that emotional value to them, but you need more than that for the fight to be good. That's only a piece of the fight. You need actual fighting for the fight to look good, for the fight to be good, for the fight to be perceived as good. You can't just let emotions carry the fight. But yeah, they could have done a lot better with the fights. High School DxD of course has its flaws. No anime is perfect. But despite these flaws, High School DxD is still a very enjoyable and good anime. It's hard to hate it because it's not meant to be taken super seriously. It's not the type of anime where you're supposed to go into it thinking about all its flaws, nitpicking everything. You're supposed to just sit down and enjoy it, and that's why so many people do enjoy it. So yes, High School DxD has its flaws, but it's still a masterpiece. And boom, that's that video. This is the most negative video I've ever made. When it comes to finding things to talk about, I didn't really have a problem with that. I actually had a problem with expressing the reasons why I don't like these things. And I still have a lot that I wanted to talk about, but I'll save that for the individual seasons where I go into detail on all the seasons. But of course, I need to rewatch the show before I do all that. Also, don't get it twisted. Just because I did criticize this anime doesn't mean it's not my favorite anime. It's still a banger in my eyes, but everything can be criticized. Again, you don't want to just follow something blindly. But yeah, I don't know what my future video is going to be. Probably something that was recommended by a subscriber, but I don't know yet. But yeah, I'm gonna get out of here. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.